So Samsung just recalled 1.2 million stoves in the United States, and it's because they are catching things on fire. They're finding out that pets are jumping up on the knobs, accidentally turning them on, and then catching whatever's on top of the unit on fire. So far, there have been 300 fires, and there's even been a few pet fatalities. I don't know if there's been any loss of human life, but it's been really, really bad. However, the thing about this situation is that the problem's a little bit deeper than just a Samsung problem. I want to show you why. But if you're watching this and you own a Samsung stove that is similar to this, it's a problem on the slide-in ranges. I want to show you real quick how to find the model and serial number on yours to get the device that Samsung is giving away free to solve this problem. So let's take a look inside and find your model number. To find the model number, it's going to be in one or two places. The first is when you open the oven door, and it will be in the top left corner, possibly underneath where the control knobs are. The other area would be in the warming tray, typically on the left or right side on a sticker that is oriented vertically. You want to find the model number and serial number of your stove. Once you find it, go to Samsung.com and find the information about the range knob kit. You'll need to verify that your unit's part of the recall by putting in your serial number to see if it is in fact part of that recall. Because if it is, it's a fire hazard, and you'll get this screen confirming that your unit is part of the recall. Well, shoot, this stove is under the factory recall. And of course, I've gone through Samsung's website and ordered the correct stove knob locks for this. But the bigger question is, why in the world did this happen? Is this just another case of Samsung messing something up? Well, the answer to that question is a little bit more interesting than what a simple tutorial video on how to get your free knob locks would be. The reality of these units is that the knob itself is not the problem. It is the infinite switch that is on the inside, and that's where the story gets quite interesting. When you have a unit like this, the thing that's catching everything on fire is your surface element. In some cases, maybe an induction guide. This gets hot, it causes the fire because these get really toasty up top. But the story isn't necessarily here. It is what is directly connected to that knob, which is one of these. This is an infinite switch. We did a video recently on Frigidaires on how to replace these. These knobs inside the Samsung stove, well, they're not special, different. I can use this random generic one that we got from another appliance. I think this is actually a GE, and it has the same resistance, the same likelihood of failure because it is very easy to push and turn. The technicians behind the scenes have known for quite a while that the fault isn't with Samsung, it's more or less with the style of stove we have here. Freestanding slide-in ranges have a terrible fault. And if you don't want to believe me, let's go through our store and look at some of the other units that are like this that are not Samsung's and see just how easy it is for us to cause a fire. These Samsungs are really, really easy for us to turn them on accident and move them. I just literally have to hit the front of these and it's easy to turn, but it is a big problem with a lot of stoves. Let's go to another one right here. This is a Cosmo stove. It's made by Midea. It has big, fancy, super thick stainless steel knobs on it. I will say that the central burner is actually kind of good. It will only turn one way, which is clockwise, so it would be a little bit less likely to be accidental. But when you go to the other knobs, it's pretty easy. I can just, as long as there's a little bit of a resistance there, but it takes literally just one wrong push for it to catch on fire. And these knobs are quite a bit different. They have a long shaft on them. They're engineered just a little bit differently, but in reality, when you get behind all this, it's going to have a very similar infinite switch behind it. So this is another manufacturer that would potentially have issues. And the point of this video is that if you start doing research on lawsuits or claims of fire damage with stoves like slide-in ranges, you find out that even though Samsung's done the recall, the problem's a lot bigger than you think. There's a reporter with the name of Jason Stuginki who has done reports on many, many other stoves in North Carolina and Charlotte that were having tons of issues. And it wasn't necessarily a Samsung, it was an LG. And if you look at the lawsuits that are out there when it comes to slide-in ranges, you find that Whirlpool, GE, Maytag, and I think even Bosch have pending lawsuits against them because of this same issue. The problem is way more prevalent than you would want to think, and Samsung deserves blame, but not all the blame. It's just a critical failure. And what is the critical failure? Well, it's the fact that your danger zone is right on the front of the unit, and it makes it a very easy target to cause all sorts of problems. In fact, if you look for the solution to the problem, which are range control knob guards, those have existed for many, many years in different forms and functions. They are on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, Lowe's, Home Depot. Everyone has stove guards because, well, the fires have happened on a lot of different brands. And when you dig into the CPSC report, you find out that there were a lot of other stoves that caught different things on houses and fire. They just couldn't identify the brand of stove that caused the fire. It is much harder to push these in and do it on accident because you'd have to have access to the stovetop to do that. So when it comes to slide-in ranges, you have to have extra precautions in place as a consumer, regardless of this recall. So if you own a KitchenAid, a JennAir, a LG, a GE, or any of the other brands that are not involved in the recall, you should definitely consider something to absolve you of a potential risk. Manufacturers are going to have to look at reinventing the knobs to solve this issue. And some brands have, in fact, already resolved the issue, and I want to show you how they have done that. Because unless you are wanting to get a range like this one, well, what are you going to do? Well, let's go ahead and go over here to a Whirlpool that has a different solution on it. If we take off the nice brand new factory coating of it, you find that the range here is oriented quite a bit differently. You have the knobs up top, and they are oppositely oriented. Instead of them starting at the 12 o'clock position, they start at the 6 o'clock position. With these, it's actually much harder to accidentally jimmy these. I physically cannot unless I push down and then finally turn either clockwise or counterclockwise. When it is front facing, it's easier to apply that pressure to turn the knob to do what you want. But with the 6 o'clock orientation and the fact that it is facing upwards makes it very difficult to have any sort of accidental failure. It may not look as nice as a front-facing oriented knob, but it's going to be a lot safer. Another way that you could do this is to, well, just do away with the knobs altogether. This one has no knobs on it. It is entirely UI based. You just simply press the buttons and get the choice of the numbers. Now, quite frankly, I hate these. I think they're terrible in terms of engineering perspective, because then if your board goes bad, this whole system's shot. And chances are that this Frigidaire Gallery UI is going to be very, very expensive. It's an induction range, but if you were in a situation where you were super concerned about a fire risk because of, say, young children or animals, this is probably a better choice of resolving your fears if you don't want the vertically oriented one like we have here with Whirlpool. And the thing is, if you go through my shop with all the different ranges that are here, again, I would definitely prefer the ones that have the top orientation with the regular traditional ranges. But if you don't want that, I would look at one either with the UI based or one that has the knobs oriented. And the thing is, again, all the manufacturers that I can think of have this issue, whether it's going to be a Cosmo, an LG. I only have so many slide-in ranges here to, pretend that we have a ton of them in stock. We don't. I don't sell a whole lot of them because we're in a poor area. But if we go over here, we can have a Bosch that I could show you, and that it's just as susceptible, sadly. Although it does, I think it's a little bit better. So now we have a Bosch over here, and when you push it in, it still has the same issue of the knob orientation, although I think the resistance is a little bit better. They do a little bit different job here. When you remove the knob, it does have a different mounting unit here that would offer a little bit more resistance. I need to look the model number up on what's behind this, and I would imagine that it could be more of a Robert Shaw or slightly different model, but it still is going to have the same problem because of the vertical 12 o'clock orientation on it. The Bosch, slightly better, but budget-wise, you are going to pay for that. In the end, I hope this video shows you how to address the problem with your Samsung range possibly catching on fire, but also the core problem with why this is happening, because I think that in the near future, we're probably going to see other recalls of that style of unit, because again, every company, I think, uses these style of Robert Shaw or Ego infinite switches. And again, if you wanted to, this stove's just as easy to turn as the slide-in models. It's just that they're much harder to get to, therefore the likelihood of that fire is less likely. And one other thing I do want to say is that I did send an email to Samsung about this because somehow I have the phone number for an engineer at Samsung, and this is what they said about the issue. Just before finishing the video, I was actually able to have a phone conversation with someone from Samsung's corporate communication team about the recall issues and the recall itself and the core issues of the fires. The first note that I had was that during the teardown of the Samsung range, the branded Infinite switches, I thought it was Robert Shaw or Ego, whereas they use a manufacturer named Park, but it seems like there's very little difference between any of those brands. The representative from Samsung agreed that the core issue of the video is what I believe it is. Forward-facing knobs are presenting the massive fire hazard in homes, and that really the best course of action is that you keep pets and kids away from your stove and nothing flammable is in front of it. And it's not just Samsung, it's the CPSC, the entity that involved itself in the recall, will tell you as well to keep things away from the stoves. The rep also noted that Samsung does have some features that are built in to dissuade some of these fires, such as Wi-Fi connectivity through the SmartThings app that would tell you that the burners are on, and many of these style of stoves will have blue LED lights that will illuminate when you turn them on in case you've accidentally done that, which would be much brighter than the old surface hot lights. But let's be honest, you're probably not caring about those things at this point in the video because they don't prevent the stove from being accidentally turned on in the first place. Fortunately though, for this story, he mentioned that Samsung has begun adapting a pinch to turn style system in April 2024 that would actually prevent these accidents entirely, and they're kind of similar to the range safe system that's been around for a few years. He also said that all the other manufacturers are part of working groups to solve this issue, although it's probably going to end up like the Element situation we've had with coil-top stoves, where there are going to be mandatory safety features in the near future, but that is merely my opinion. Oh wow, that's really what they said? That's super interesting that it just appeared on this piece of OSB board right beside me. But anyway, guys, I hope this video educated you a little bit and explained the situation in a little bit more detail than probably what you'll see on the nightly news, because I think that it's a bigger issue than what most outlets are going to make it out to be, because all the technicians I've talked to have basically said, why didn't they recall every other stove on the market that has the slide-in orientation? Because it's not just a Samsung problem. And again, Samsung is offering the knob locks free of charge, but if you don't want to wait for them or you have a different model that these will not work on, Amazon, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, all the different companies offer the knob guards, which look like child safety caps, and they're not very expensive if you want to solve that protection issue. I hope you guys have a great day. See ya.